हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनीति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हरे कृष्ण।
Thank you. So after the prayers of Mother Kunti, what was the response of Lord Krishna? Radhi Prabhu, how Krishna reciprocates with Mother Kunti?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Sorry? Okay, Priyanka.
He smiled.
Boliye, your hand is up. I cannot see Ravinder Prabhu, so you are visible. I assume that you have raised the hand. Boliye. Either of you, whoever wants to answer.
Lord Krishna smiled after hearing Kunti Devi's prayer.
A little louder, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Lord Krishna smiled Prabhuji after hearing Devi's prayer.
He smiled mildly. Krishna has many, versions of smiles. And Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion at least cites 4 types of Krishna's smile. So Krishna smiled mildly. He was very satisfied with the prayers. Prabhupada is writing here that he is satisfied by his prayers. And what he did? He stayed. He did not leave for Dwarka. The next verse from 45th verse. Tambadham iti uparmantriya pravishya gajas vayam striyascha puram yasya premna rajna nivarita. Thus accepting the prayers of Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthira. Premna Rajna Nivarita. Nivarita means stop, and Rajna here is King Yudhishthira. So he was stopped by King Yudhishthira, who implored him lovingly. Sonika, please mute. Sonika, please mute. So first it was Kunti Devi, and then subsequently it is the king, the crown prince, Maharaj Yudhishthira, who is, with his love, he is trying to stop Krishna from proceeding towards Dwarika. Prabhupada says that no one could make Lord Krishna stay at Hastinapur when he decided to start for Dwarika. But the simple request of King Yudhishthira that the Lord remains there for a few days more was immediately effective. This signifies that the power of King Yudhishthira was loving affection, which the Lord could not deny. The Almighty God is thus conquered only by the loving service and nothing else. In Chaitanya Leela, there is a parallel. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as soon as he took sannyas, he wanted to go to Vrindavan. But he was tricked by first whom? Who tricked him? Did not allow him to go to Vrindavan? You should be knowing. At least this much Chaitanya Leela you should be knowing. Bolo, Dayashil, why your video is off? You and
Prabhuji, I'm taking Prasadam Prabhuji over. My Prasadam is over, just little.
Huh?
I'm taking Prasadam Prabhuji, a little bit more time.
अगर हम तुम्हें प्रसाद लेते हुए देखे, तुम्हारा प्रसाद थोड़ी खा जाएंगे हम। यू विल नॉट ईट योर प्रसाद। एनीवे, बोलो। अरे दिस यू शुड बी नोइंग एक्चुअली। हु स्टॉप्ड महाप्रभु, हु ट्रिक्ड महाप्रभु फ्रॉम रीचिंग वृंदावन? यस रम्या?
प्रभु जी सच्ची माता।
नो, नित्यानंद प्रभु। नित्यानंद प्रभु. Nityanand Prabhu tricked him and took him to Shantipur. And when second time he wanted to go, there were two personalities who were creating a lot of impediments. You know who were these two personalities? Who were making so many requests. When Mahaprabhu wanted to leave, they said that it is very hot. If you go now, it will be very, very difficult. It will be very uncomfortable. So please wait till Rath Yatra. And when the Rath Yatra comes, then everybody, all the Navadip Vasis, everyone comes. They are all there with Mahaprabhu. And when the Rath Yatra is over, the Chaturmas is over, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to leave, then these two personalities say that if you go now from here, by the time you reach Vrindavan, it will be Magh. And it is very cold. It is so cold that it will be very inconvenient for you. So you better stay. Who are these two personalities? बोलो। चैतन्य लीला कुछ तो आना चाहिए। इतनी बार मायापुर होके आ गए, इतना चैतन्य चरितामृत पढ़ लिया हमने। मनोराम, should not be blank faced. Pranav,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, is it Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Kashi Mishra?
Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, not Kashi Mishra, Ramanand Roy. Ramanand Roy and Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. So for 2 years they delayed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after he came back from South India, that he could not go. He immediately wanted to go, but he could not go. Because both these personalities were always, why? The point here which is mentioned in Prabhupada's purport, out of affection and love. And out of their affection and love, Mahaprabhu could not refuse to them. The Lord could not deny. The Almighty God is just conquered only by the loving service and nothing else. He is fully independent in all his dealings, but he voluntarily accepts obligations by the loving affection of his pure devotees. So this is the principle. So if the devotee who is pure in his service, who is pure in his motivation, if he makes a request, what is the result? The Lord can never deny. The Lord will never deny. So now this time after Kunti Devi, it was followed up by Yudhishthir Maharaj. Vyasader Ishvara Ihagna Krishnena Adbhut Karmana Prabodhito Api Itihase Na Buddhyata Sucharpitaha. King Yudhishthir, who was also very much aggrieved, could not be convinced despite instruction by Vyas and other great sages, and by Lord Krishna himself. So this is another episode where after the war was over and there was so much of mass killings of the soldiers on either side, practically everyone was killed. Hardly few survived. And Maharaj Yudhishthir had this lamentation in his heart. He was regretting so much in his heart that because he wanted to become the king, so this battle was fought. And because this battle was fought, so many millions of life has been lost. So he was feeling himself so guilty, and he was feeling himself as if he is the culprit for so much of loss of men. And he could not be pacified. He could not be convinced. First, what is mentioned is Vyasa Adaha. by the great sage Vyas, the most learned personality, Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He himself, Vyasadeva, tried to pacify and convince Maharaj Yudhishthir, but Maharaj Yudhishthir was not pacified. Despite instruction by Vyas and other great sages. Then Lord Krishna himself, so when these sages headed by Vyasadeva, they tried to convince and he was not convinced. So Krishna tried. Krishna gave the good counsel. Krishna gave the principles. And despite all historical evidences, the pious king Yudhishthir was mortified because of the mass massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra, especially on his account. Duryodhana had been there on the throne and he was doing well in his administration. And in one sense, there was no need of fighting. This is the feeling of King Yudhishthir. That is why he is called Ajat Shatru. That his enemy is never born. Why? Because those who were considering themselves the enemy of Maharaj Yudhishthir, even for them, Maharaj Yudhishthir has such high opinion. And the foremost amongst his enemy was Duryodhana and his party. And for Duryodhana, what is the regard in the heart of Maharaj Yudhishthir? He is saying that Duryodhana had been on the throne and he was doing well in his administration, and in one sense there was no need of fighting. But on the principle of justice, Yudhishthir was to replace him. The whole clique of politics centered around this point, and all the kings and residents of the world became involved in this fight because of the rival cousins. Lord Krishna was also there on the sides of King Yudhishthir. It is said in the Mahabharata, Adi Parva 2.25, that 640 million men were killed in the 18 days of the Battle of Kurukshetra, and that millions were missing. Practically, this was the greatest battle in the world within 5,000 years. So such a colossal loss of human race, of human lives. This mass killing simply to enthrone Maharaj Yudhishthir was so mortifying. So he tried to be convinced with the evidence from histories by great sages like Vyasa and the Lord himself that the fight was just because the cause was just. But Maharaj Yudhishthir was not to be satisfied. Even though he was instructed by the greatest personalities of that time, Krishna is designated herein as the performer of superhuman actions. But in this particular instance, neither he nor Vyas could convince King Yudhishthir. Does it mean that he failed to be superhuman actor? Who? Krishna. Did he fail? No, certainly not. The interpretation is that Lord as Ishvara or the super soul in the heart of both King Yudhishthir and Vyasa performed still more superhuman action because the Lord desired it. Please understand, this is the tattva. As super soul of King Yudhishthir, he did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa and others, including himself. He desired that the king hear instructions from the dying Bhishmadev, who was another great devotee of the Lord. The Lord wanted that at the last stage of his material existence, the great warrior Bhishmadev see him personally and see his beloved grandchildren, King Yudhishthir, etc. So this was the plan of the Lord. So many times this is a big principle that we should understand. Here, please try to see the gravity of this episode. Very, very deep. This section, Bhagavatam says that even Lord Krishna tried to give good counsel to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Yudhishthira Maharaj was not convinced. He would not accept. The Prabhupada is raising this point that did Krishna fail? Krishna gave the counsel to Arjuna, and Arjuna transformed. He was not willing to fight, but he fought, and the battle was won. But after the battle was won, the heart of Yudhishthira Maharaj was lost. He is feeling so much guilty conscience that because of his aspiration to become the king, so many lives have been lost. And Krishna tried to explain him, but persuade him from so many sources, particularly from the scriptures, and why it was so imperative that Maharaj Yudhishthir had to be enthroned and the envious and the miscreant Duryodhana and company to be dethroned. But still he was not convinced. So sometimes in our life, in our situation, we see that some events or some situations which seems very simple and obvious and that should go in our favor, but it goes against. Like we see here, Krishna himself counseling and Yudhishthira Maharaj not being convinced. Krishna giving so many evidences, but still Yudhishthira Maharaj's heart did not accept. So Prabhupada is speaking here a very bigger principle that this was the plan of the super soul. So don't break your head. Should not break our head. We should move forward. We should not get stuck there. Because if it is not the plan of the Lord, then it will never happen. We see people, they are stuck there and they will keep trying to force it and make it happen year after year, decade after decade, life after life. It is not worth it. Leave it in consultation, not on our own. So here, Krishna did not force Yudhishthira, or Krishna did not overemphasize Yudhishthira to be convinced. Krishna convinced Arjuna that this is Dharma Yuddha and it is your dharma to fight for the justice. But the same argument was not accepted by Maharaj Yudhishthira. Prabhupada is explaining here that Krishna, the super soul in the heart of Yudhishthira, did not allow Yudhishthira to accept. Why? Because there was a bigger cause. What was the cause? Lord wanted to glorify his very pure devotee Bhishma Deva in his most final moments of life. He did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa and others, including himself, because he desired that the king hear instructions from the dying Bhishma Deva, who was another great devotee of the Lord. The Lord wanted that at the last stage of his material existence, the great warrior Bhishma Deva see him personally and see his beloved grandchildren, King Yudhishthira, etc., now situated on the throne, and thus pass away very peacefully. Bhishma Deva was not at all satisfied to fight against the Pandavas, who were his beloved fatherless grandchildren. But the Kshatriyas also very stern people. And therefore he was obligated to take the side of the Duryodhana because he was maintained at the expense of Duryodhana. Prabhupada emphasizes this very prominently. Prabhupada is not emphasizing that because he had his own vow to keep. Prabhupada is emphasizing this point that because he was maintained at the expense of Duryodhana. Besides this, the Lord also desired that King Yudhishthira be pacified by the words of Bhishma Deva, so that the world would see that Bhishma Deva excelled in all knowledge, including the Lord himself. So he wanted to establish the authority of Bhishma Deva as a Mahajan. So he did not allow Maharaj Yudhishthira to be counseled or be convinced by any amount of argument or justice or statement given by the Lord himself or by Vyasadeva. 47th verse. Aharaj dharma sutas chintayan sohridam vadham prakartenatmana vipra sneha moha vasham gata. King Yudhishthir, the son of Dharma, was overwhelmed by the death of his friend, was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. King Yudhishthir, though he was not expected to become aggrieved like a common man, became deluded by worldly affection by the will of the Lord, just as Arjuna was apparently deluded. A man who sees knows well that the living entity is neither the body nor the mind, but is transcendental to the material conception of life. The common man thinks of violence and non-violence in terms of the body, but that is a kind of delusion. Everyone is duty bound according to one's occupational duties. A Kshatriya is bound to fight for the right cause, regardless of the opposite parties. In such discharge of duty, one should not be disturbed by annihilation of the material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Maharaj Yudhishthira. But by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man or a worldly man who shows so much material affliction based on body. Because there was another great idea behind this delusion. The king would be instructed by Bhishma as Arjun was instructed by the Lord himself. So this was Krishna's plan. Ahame pashyata agnanam hidayarudhi duratmana parak parakyas parakyasya eva dehasya bhavyo me akshano hata. King Yudhishthira said, "Oh my Lord," it should be, "Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many phalanxes of men, akshohinis." So it's the Hriday Rudham Duratmanah. Aho me pashyata, just see, ajnanam Hriday Rudham. And he is considering himself Duratmanam. So he is holding himself responsible for all the killing. And Prabhupada talks about the Akshohinis. A solid phalanx. Phalanx is Akshohini. Sanskrit term is Akshohini and the English term is phalanx. Of 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 109,350 infantry, 65,610 cavalry is called an Akshohini. So these many men and animal make one Akshohini. And how many Akshohini were there on the battlefield? How many Akshohinis were there? Yes, Ramya?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, 18.
18. How? Do you remember?
11 from Kauravas and 7 from Pandavas.
Perfect. 18 were there in total. 11 from the Kaurava side and 7 from the Pandava side. So all these millions of military men in all their phalanxes who died, Yudhishthir Maharaj is considering himself the killer of all of them. Maharaj Yudhishthir is the most pious king of the world, takes for himself the responsibility for killing such a huge number of living beings, because the battle was fought to reinstate him on the throne. The body is, after all, meant for others. This is what he is speaking. While there is life in the body, it is meant for the service of others. And when it is dead, it is meant to be eaten by dogs and jackals or maggots. He is sorry because for such a temporary body, such a huge massacre was committed. So he is very disturbed. He is feeling very guilty. He is feeling himself he's taking the responsibility. He's taking the ownership for all the destruction which happened in the battlefield. Baladvija Suhin Mitra Pitra Bhitra Pitra Bhatra Guru Druha Namesan Nirayan Moksho Yapi Varsh Achyut Ayuta. Further, what he's saying, I have killed many boys, Bala, Vija, Brahmanas, Shruhit, well-wishers, Mitra, friends, Pitra, parents or descendants, preceptors, Father is the brothers, Guru is the preceptors. I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins, though I lived there for millions of years. So he is feeling himself the offender. He is feeling himself the culprit. Whenever there is a war, there is certainly a massacre of many innocent living beings, such as boys, brahmanas, and women, whose killing is considered to be the greatest of sin. They are all innocent creatures, and in all circumstances, killing of them is forbidden in the scriptures. Maharaj Yudhishthir was aware of these mass killings. Similarly, there were friends, parents, and preceptors also on the both sides. You remember, this is the same argument. Similar argument was given by Arjuna when he saw destroy Swajanam. And he was seeing the other side, is so-called the army of the enemy side, filled with all levels of his relatives. So he was refusing to fight. And here we see that Maharaj Parikshit is lamenting that all those who were fighting on behalf of Duryodhana as our enemy, they were our friends, our preceptors. Preceptor is Guru, that is Guru Drona and Kripacharya. So many friends. And all of them were killed. It was simply horrible for him to think of such killing. And therefore he was thinking of residing in hell for a millions and billions of years. What was the argument Arjuna gave? Papam eva shreyadasmin atvatan atatayin. They said, sin will inflict us. I'll be inflicted by sin. If I kill all this who have assembled, although they are what? They are atatai. They are atatai, but I cannot kill them, because if I kill them, I will be inflicted by sin and I will suffer. So Maharaj Yudhishthir is thinking that because of this great killing, and I being the reason behind the killing. Therefore, he was thinking of the sinful impact of the battle, that he will be pushed into the hellish condition of life for millions and billions of years. Naina Rajana Praja Bhartu Dharma Yuddhe Vado Visham Iti Menatu Bodhya Kalpate Sasanam Vacha. There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his critics, but this injunction is not applicable to me. So he is even going to this extent and saying that there is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But he said that, but this principle, this injunction, is not applicable to me. Who said this? Yes, Sonika?
Maharaj Yudhishthir.
Yeah, Maharaj Yudhishthir. He says that in general this principle works and the king is not responsible. But in my case, I am only responsible. King Yudhishthir thought that although he had not actually been involved in the administration of the kingdom, which had been carried on well by Duryodhana without harm to the citizen, he had caused the killing of so many living beings only for his personal gain of the kingdom from the hand of Duryodhana. The killing was committed not in the course of administration, but for the sake of self-aggrandizement. Self-aggrandizement. And as such, he thought himself responsible for all these sins. I'll complete it tomorrow. There are quotes. There are 3 verses. Or should I complete today? Bolo? Okay, let's go. Nano Ragna Praja Bhartu. This we have done. Strina Madhata Bandhuna Roho Yo Asau Ihoti Ta Karma Bhe Graha Me Diye Naham Kalpo Vyapodhitam. I have killed many friends of women, and I have thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work. The Grahmedis are those only whose business is to perform welfare work for the sake of material prosperity. Such material prosperity is sometimes hampered by sinful activities. For the materialist is sure to commit sins, even unintentionally. In the course of discharging material duties, to get relief from such sinful reactions, the Vedas prescribe 7 kinds of sacrifices. It is said at the Vedas that by performing the Ashwamedha Yagya or sacrifice, one can get the relief from even Brahma Hatya, killing of the Brahmanas. Yudhishthir Maharaj performed this Ashwamedha Yagya, but he thinks that even by performing such yagya, it is not possible to get relief from the great sin he committed by killing the friends and relatives of innocent women. In war, either a woman's husband or brother, or even fathers or sons, go to fight. And when they are killed, a fresh enmity is created. And thus, a chain of actions and reactions increases which is not possible to be counteracted even by thousands of ashwin. Yeah. The way of work karma is like that. It creates one action and another reaction simultaneously, and thus they increase the chain of material activities, binding the performer in material bondage. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:27-28, the remedy is suggested. What is the verses? 9:27 and 28. Very famous verse. 9:27. Without seeing the Bhagavad Gita. What is the verse 9:27 and 28? No one remembers. So many times we have studied the 9th chapter. Ichha dvesha samuthena vand mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoha sargayanti. Most likely this is the 9.27 verse. 9.28, 9.828 you should be knowing. Yesham tu ant gatam papam jananam punya karmanam. No, these are not doing. It's the 9th chapter. 27th is yat karoshi yad ashnashi. That is the 7th chapter. What is mentioned here? Nine point 27. 27, that is 7th chapter. 7, 27 and 28. 27th is yat karoshi yad ashnashi, yat juhushi dadashi yat tapasyasya kaunteya kurusva mat arpanam. The remedy suggested that such actions and reactions of the path can only be checked when work is done on behalf of the Supreme Lord. And 18 is Shubhashubh Falereva Moksha se Karma Bandhane Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukton Mam Upashyasi. So when all action is performed as an offering to the Lord, when it is only yajna. When the remedy suggested that the actions and reactions on the path of work can be checked only when work is done on behalf of the Supreme Lord. The battle of Kurukshetra was actually fought by the will of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, as it is evident from his version. And only by his will was Yudhishthira placed on the throne of Hastinapur. Therefore, factually, no sin whatsoever touched the Pandavas, who were only the order carriers of the Lord. For others who declare war out of personal interest, the whole responsibility lies on them. I will stop here. Only 2-3 verses are left that we will take tomorrow and conclude it. On this section, we saw that Krishna is very pleased with the prayers of Kunti Devi. And after Kunti Devi, we see that Maharaj Yudhishthira, he becomes so much disturbed. And he thinks he takes the blame on himself, that it is only because of him he becomes the Karan of this matricial war where millions are killed and is not being pacified. So Krishna will make an opportunity for Bhishma Dev to enlighten Yudhishthira Maharaj. That is in the next chapter. I'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. From your side, if you have any question or any discussion, please proceed. How many of you are practicing the verses every day? Priyanka?
Yes, Swamiji.
You are practicing?
Yes, Prabhuji.
I couldn't hear either yes or no. What
Yes,
did you say?
Prabhuji. Yes.
Ramya has raised her hand. What about others? Sonika, you are not practicing?
Prabhuji, last 2 days से नहीं हुआ है practice.
करिए नहीं तो भूल जाएंगे. कोशिश करिए. हाँ. Okay. So I'll stop here. Okay, only Prabhu is also practicing. Very good. Dashil, you are not practicing?
No, Prabhuji, no, I'm not.
And when you were taking prasad at that time here, na, lay the tape. And here, what is the difficulty? At that time when you were taking prasad, what can you do? At least you can hear. So here, apply intelligence. माने नहीं माता जी को तो जरूरत नहीं है.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम.
हरे कृष्ण.
नहीं प्रभु जी, जरूरत है प्रभु जी.
हाँ जरूरत है. आपके पास कहाँ जरूरत है? कभी कभार आ जाती है आप गेस्ट अपीयरेंस.
नहीं.
श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. कुंती देवी की जय. श्री प्रभुपाद